It's the moment when you step out and the temperature in the room seems to rise a bit. Expectation, enjoyment, right? That's the moment, not the end, not the curtain call. It's that moment you say, they're listening, we're connecting. That's the moment that matters.
Welcome to Backstage with Richard Ridge. Following a critically acclaimed sold-out run this past May, New Yorker magazine writer and best-selling author Adam Gopnik returns to Lincoln Center's Clark Studio Theater with his solo autobiographical show called Adam Gopnik's New York for 11 performances only from October 17th through the 26th. And I caught up with Adam here at the legendary Sardi's. Well, Adam, it is great to be sitting with you here at Sardi's.
It is amazing to be sitting with you here, Richard, at Sardi's.
So listen, how excited are you? You're about to return to the Clark Studio Theater at Lincoln Center with your solo show. How excited?
It's astounding. You know, it's one of those things because it comes at you in segments. Okay, now we have to rehearse. Now we have to do it. And then you stop and think, oh my goodness, I'm doing a one-man show at Lincoln Center. I'm sitting at Sardi's, and all the things you dreamt of 45 years ago when I got on a bus to come to New York are available, you know, coming true. And that is an astounding feeling. So I'm going to try and live in that feeling instead of in panic, fear, and hysteria for the next few days.
Well, you know what? You've done the show already.
Yes.
Incredible sold-out run in May.
Yes, that is true.
Take me back to the beginning. How did the show come about?
So Steve Martin is an old and dear friend, and we were having breakfast together, and he said, you know, you really ought to do a one-man show. And I said, well, I sort of did one, because I did do one at the Public Theater, but that was moth stories, funny stories that I told in sequence. And he said, no, you're not a stand-up comic. Very straightforward, you're not a stand-up. He said, you should do something that represents the peculiar qualities of your mind, because people love the fact that when they pick up the New Yorker, you might be writing about medieval history, and you might be writing about insomnia, and that breadth of your interest is what interests us. Said, and so you should do that. So I said, okay. And then Martha, my wife, and I went to Café Un Deux Trois, another New York classic, and on a piece of placemat, we wrote out every riff I'd ever done that people seemed particularly to enjoy. And then with blessed family and friends, my amazing daughter Olivia, being the referee, I just tried out one riff after another in different orders until a shape began to emerge for the show. And then Steve said, why don't you come over to my place and we'll just do it in my living room. I'll invite a few friends and we'll see what you've got. So I go over in my little suit, we're trying to remember what all the riffs are in order. We had organized around, I had the single strangest, but not most unsuccessful psychoanalysis in history. And we all agreed that was a good spine for the show. The sporadic incidents in my psychoanalysis with the most heedless 85-year-old Austrian Freudian imaginable. Went over to Steve's, and there were the few friends. Eric Idle was one of the few friends. Raul Esparza was sitting in there too. And I thought, I am going to try and amuse Eric Idle. I'm going to impress Raul Esparza with my thespian presence.
Just some friends.
Yeah, and Steve, right in the center of them, you know, the greatest comedian of our time. And I take a gulp, and I do it. I do the thing, and it seems to go over okay. And Eric says, yes, that was very funny, and now you just have to do A, B, and C. Raul, with enormous generosity, came over in great seriousness and said, this will be good, he said, but you have to learn to sculpt it for the stage. And out of enormous benevolence, he spent countless hours over the next few months helping me sculpt it for the stage. Now, I had been an actor, believe it or not, when I was a kid. I had been Andre Gregory, you know, the great Andre Gregory, My Dinner with Andre, had an avant-garde company in Philadelphia, and I was the Shirley Temple of the Philadelphia avant-garde. I got all the child parts in, you know, the theater of cruelty and in Brecht and so on. Really in Brecht, in Brecht's Galileo. So I knew something about what it felt like to be on stage from my childhood, but remembering, relearning the particular power where you address the audience intimately, where you address the audience a little professorially, where you have the maximum possibility for comedy. the simple thing which every actor knows, and I had known once but had to relearn, that if you see it in your head, there's a whole section in the piece that's set in Central Park, and I learned all over again that if I'm seeing what I see in Central Park, the audience, it's the strange and beautiful alchemy of theater, the audience sees it. They read something about your commitment and they see it with you, and if you're not seeing it, they don't see it. All of that extraordinary alchemy and magic of the theater I practiced, and then we took it to the Clark Theater in May, and it seemed to work. All of the little sporadic pieces seemed to come together in a flow. As I say, the show has, in one way, a very strong vertical arc because it's all about this insane psychoanalysis I went through and how it was both maddening and deeply healing, and that's kind of the paradox of it. And that's the story I'm telling, but all along the way, I talk about the erotic fetishization of rats, about the history of snowflakes. Are they actually all individual and unlike? I talk about having to give an impromptu keynote speech one Saturday morning at 9 a.m. that I was totally unprepared for. I talk about messaging with my son. So all of those pieces are strung out horizontally along this general vertical of one man's journey towards self-healing of an eccentric kind.
I love this. So these are sort of pieces based on pieces you also wrote for The New Yorker, right?
Significant number of them are things taken out of, I'm essentially, and always have been, an entertainer and even a kind of stand-up comic on the page. I write about very serious subjects sometimes, gun control or the authoritarian impulse in our current government. But my first allegiance is to the readers and to trying to delight them. So I want whatever I write, no matter how serious the subject, I want someone to come away saying, that was time well spent. Not necessarily, I learned something or it altered my mind, but that was time well spent. I enjoyed that. So in that sense, I've always written in that way. And as a consequence, there are a lot of little sort of riffs and takeaways from the pieces. For instance, I wrote a piece once about a great philosopher, Karl Popper. And if you care about philosophy, it was interesting. But the thing in it that was, I thought, good was that I talked about how this man who believed in criticism couldn't tolerate criticism. And I think that's a general truth about people. We all make ourselves out of what we are not. We strive for the thing that isn't natural to us. It isn't our natural expression. So the greatest comedians tend to be the most serious human beings. The people who write most beautifully about jazz in the theater tend not to be the best companions you can have in the theater. They're the most nervous people. And so I wanted that little riff about the mental mirror image, how we, what we are is too familiar to us, so we make our art out of what we aren't. That was worth saving, and that's in the show.
Because this is your 40th anniversary at The New Yorker, right?
It is truly my 40th anniversary since I started at The New Yorker. It is hard for me to believe. 100th anniversary of the magazine, and I realize, and I still feel like a rookie, and I recognize now that I'm a grizzled veteran, spitting tobacco in the corner and saying, hey, these kids today. But it's been 40 years. It's been an extraordinary thing. I believe not only in The New Yorker as a magazine, as my home, but in a certain sense, Richard, as a cause. The New Yorker embodies certain virtues, humor, a light touch on serious subjects. Above all, humane values. I just was so delighted I saw this week's cover. I don't know if you've seen it yet. A dog bouncing on leaves. I thought, what a blessing at a time of such darkness and so much fear. We still have a moment to see the joyous side of the world. And that's what the magazine's always done, and it's why it has my profound gratitude for keeping me on all these years, but also my profound allegiance.
Yeah. You're no stranger to writing for the theater also, because you're in the process right now of currently writing a new musical, aren't you?
Yes, thank you for that. Yes, I have written 2 musicals with the great David Shire, one of the most sterling.
From Maltby and Shire, and of course David on his own, yes?
Yes, I'm sort of, Maltby is the wife, I'm the mistress. I'm the younger mistress in the lyric writing. But David, probably the greatest melodist of his generation. I think Stephen Sondheim called him that. And I've written 2 shows, one called Our Table, another called love song about the life of Eleanor of Aquitaine. And now Andrew Lippa, the great Andrew Lippa, and I have completed a musical, which will go into workshop in January. It's called Fairy Tale, and it's about a father and son and the birth of disco in the 1970s.
Oh, I'm so there. That's right up my alley. And Nicholas Heitner?
Nick Heitner has developed us
Yeah.
with us in London. We're now in New York, and we'll carry it forward. I hope Nick will stay with us. He was incredibly helpful doing it. Andrew is, one of the great figures of his generation after David Shires, and one of the great architects of dramatic music I know, and an utter joy to work with. And it's one of those rare things where all collaborations are complicated, but collaborating with Andrew is just, we look forward to seeing each other, and what we have to do, and it's a good collaboration, is put a limit. Andrew's a very precise person. He says, okay, we're going to schmooze from 10:14 till 10:46, and then we'll work.
Then we're working.
Then we're working, exactly. Because we have to define the schmooze, because we'll just go on indefinitely if we don't.
You must have a smartest audience at your show. Like I said, I know a lot of people who went to see you in May.
Yes.
And of course, it's that New Yorker audience too. And I'm sure it's regular people that go and walk out feeling smarter after they see your show, right?
I hope so, Richard. But my deepest desire for this show is that it not be in any sense a highbrow investigation. I talk about complicated ideas, and I have and highbrow thoughts and names come up. But it is not intended to be that. What I hope my work does, after 40 years, I can define it as, I type from the head, but I write from the heart.
Yeah.
And I hope that it's the emotional life of the show that will strike people, the comedy of it, the humor, and the reality that the most complicated ideas are only worthwhile because they vibrate with some part of our emotional life. So I want people coming out of the show not thinking about a system of ideas. I want them coming out thinking about it as a series of heartbeats. And that's my ambition for the show. And in part, because on the page, inevitably, you can seem to be more of a highbrow than you actually are. And to translate that page presence of mind into a stage presence of heart, that's exactly what I'm struggling to do here.
What are you enjoying the most? You're getting ready back on stage again.
What I enjoy most, I enjoy the moment when you're just getting ready and you've got, the cappuccino in your hand and people are coming around saying, break a leg, and you're going to have to do it, and it's that moment, and you know that it's impossible. You wish you could go someplace else, and yet it will go okay. You know that somehow the words will come to you. It's the weirdest thing because you're terrified and delighted simultaneously, and it's the oddest emotion I know, and so I love that part of it. Even more, and I think most performers feel that way. Obviously, we love applause, we love appreciation, we love people coming up, but that isn't the core emotion. It's the moment when you step out and the temperature in the room seems to rise a bit. Expectation, enjoyment, right? That's the moment, not the end, not the curtain call. It's that moment you say, they're listening, we're connecting. That's the moment that matters.
Well, I can't wait. You're there for 11 performances from October 17th through the 26th at Lincoln Center's Clark Studio Theater. For tickets, you can go to adamgopniknewyork.com.
Exactly.
I'll be there.
Terrific. Can't wait to see you there.
Really nice.
Pleasure talking to you.